Good evening, everyone. My name is Cecilia Espinoza, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals. The board is made up of 5 citizen members appointed by the Circuit Court. In addition to myself, we have Charles Smith, Monica Craven, Terry Russell, and our newest member who joins the board this evening, Ms. Judy Freshman. Also present tonight are professional staff, including our Deputy Zoning Administrator, Andrew Noxon, who is the Secretary to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and Norma Cozart, who is our Zoning Administrator. We thank you for being here and extend a warm welcome. To avoid disruptions, we ask that you please turn your cell phones or pagers off and put them in silent mode. On the front table here, if anybody hasn't come up to look, we do have copies of the staff report for each case that's coming before us this evening. I recommend that if you have not yet seen the report for your case, that you get a copy and review it before your case is called. The board's powers are prescribed in the Code of Virginia and are set out in further detail in the county zoning ordinance adopted by the county board. The Board of Zoning Appeals does not have the power to rezone property or to amend the regulations set forth in the ordinance. That authority rests with the county board. This board does have the authority to do 3 things. We can approve use permits that allow modifications of placement requirements for structures on 1- and 2-family lots where there is no option in the zoning ordinance to allow such modifications. We can grant variances from the specific requirements of the zoning ordinance, and we can decide appeals of decisions of the zoning administrator. Tonight, we only have use permits and variances coming before the board. When approving use permits, the Board of Zoning Appeals may impose conditions that it deems necessary in the public interest, including limiting the duration of the use permit. In order to approve a use permit, the law requires that the board find that the proposal meet conditions and that the use permit will not, first, adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing in the neighborhood, second, will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood, and third, will not be in conflict with the purposes of the master plans and land use and zoning related policies of the county. To find these items, the BZA shall consider whether the modifications will promote compatibility of development with the surrounding neighborhood because the structure's overall footprint, size, and placement are similar to the structures on the properties surrounding the lot in question, and whether the modification will help preserve natural landform, historical features, and/or significant trees or foliage. When granting variances, the board must determine that the strict application of the ordinance would produce undue hardship, that the hardship is not generally shared by other properties in the same zoning district, and that the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property, and that the character of the district will not be changed by the granting of the variance. A Virginia Supreme Court ruling requires that a variance cannot be granted unless the effect of the zoning ordinance, as applied to the piece of property under consideration, would, in the absence of a variance, interfere with all reasonable beneficial uses of the property, taken as a whole. When deciding appeals of the zoning administrator, the board must determine if the administrator acted correctly. This evening, the cases will be called and a brief staff report and recommendation will be given. Following that, board members will ask any questions of the staff that they may have. Next, applicants or their representative will be given an opportunity to make comments to support the application or appeal. If they choose to make a comment, they must come forward to the podium so their comments can be recorded for the record. Next, all speakers for the item will be called. Speakers must fill out a speaker slip, which is available on the table in front of the room. Representatives should also fill out a speaker slip. So if you're not the actual applicant, you would need to fill out a speaker slip. After we hear from speakers for and against the proposal, the board may permit the applicant a brief opportunity to clarify any points. The board may ask questions of any speakers, but does not permit and will not condone any cross-examination or direct questioning by others. We have deemed the following time limits for speakers to be sufficient: 5 minutes for applicants for use permits and variances. For use permits and variances, we have deemed 3 minutes for representatives of organizations and 2 minutes for individuals as sufficient. After the board has gathered all information they need and discussed the case, it will decide the matter by voting on a motion duly made and seconded. A majority is needed to approve any motion. Any appeal from the decision of this board must be made to the circuit court in accordance with state law. After your case of interest is heard, you're welcome to stay for the balance of the session, or you're free to leave. Again, thank you for being here this evening. Mr. Noxon, will you please call the first case?
Would you like to introduce Judy as a new member as well as choose the new chairman before we go ahead with the cases?
Do that first or do that at the end?
Do it at the end.
Do that
Okay.
I mean, I have
If that's
jurisdiction
okay
as the
with you.
vice chairman to convene the meeting tonight.
Okay.
So we'll
Great.
do it in that capacity, and we can do our organization meeting at the end of the program, because that way the county members are free to stay and watch us do the organization efforts or not. We can get your cases done.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. This is our first case tonight. This is case number V-10729-12-UP-2. It's a use permit request by Agazi Berhani to permit a setback of 1 foot to eave and 1.5 feet to the wall of a new 1 1/2 story detached garage from the rear property line instead of 10 feet as required, and 1.7 feet to the steps from the right side property line instead of 8 feet as required. It's for a new 1 1/2 story detached garage with exterior side steps. It's in the R5 zoning district, premises known as 839 21st Street South.
Okay. The recommendation, Mr. Noxon?
Recommendation.
So let me do that. The recommendation of the staff is to adopt the wait a minute, let me make sure I'm on the right one, because I've got other things in front of me. Yeah, 729. To adopt the attached resolution approving the subject use permit with conditions. Mr. Noxon, anything further from the staff?
If you noticed in the report, there was actually a revision made to the plans. Mr. Agazi is no longer going to add the steps, so he actually does not need a use permit for that right side property line. He's only requesting from the rear property line.
Okay. Okay. Yes, questions of staff?
Can you remind me, please, if this was not a corner lot, what would be the requirements for that garage?
He could have 1 foot from the side and the rear.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant present or his representative? Do you want to come forward, please? You've read the recommendation of the staff. Do you have anything further or anything you want to share with the board?
No, I think everything is in there. So,
Okay. Any further questions from board members? Yes, Mr. Smith.
I'd be happy to introduce a motion if you're ready.
I'm ready.
I'd move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution approving subject use permit with conditions described in the staff report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Craven. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much.
Next case tonight is a carryover from last month. This is V-10753-13-VA-1. It's a variance request by Tim Tom to permit a total lot coverage of 43.9% instead of 38% as required for a new concrete driveway. And this is in the R8 zoning district, premises known as 1515 North George Mason Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Noxon. And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution denying the variance. Any members have questions of the staff?
Yes, Madam Chair, one question of staff. Last month, Mr. Tom was here, and it looks like there, in addition to now at least a comment from a neighbor, that there has been a change. Would you describe what changes he made in his proposal, his request?
Mr. Tom actually submitted a alternative proposal for an 8-foot wide circular driveway instead of the 12 feet he asked for. So what he would actually request is 41.7% instead of 43%.
And yet the staff continues to feel this was not appropriate, Mr. Noxon?
We're still recommending denial on the case.
In addition, I'd note for the record that Mr. Tom has also provided 4 additional letters of support, 3 that are in our packet and 1 that was provided to us this evening from Michael Yancey. But is Mr. Tom here? I don't see him.
Madam Chair, I'd move that we move this to the end of the, defer this to the end of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. It's been moved to move this to the end of the agenda. All in favor? Aye. Okay, that carries. We'll come back to that at the end of the evening.
Here, next case is V-10763-13-UP-1. It's a use permit request by Sarah Connors and Jim Stars to permit a setback of 18 feet to the steps from the 21st Street South right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. This is just for a set of new front steps. It's in the R10 zoning district, premises known as 1406 21st Street South.
Thank you, Mr. Noxon. And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution to approve the subject use permit with conditions. Any questions of staff?
I have a question of the
Sure,
applicant.
yeah, Madam Chair, just one. And I guess when, if this were approved, the applicant would, at the desk, have to present better drawings than what we see here, I would presume.
Really, he has details that would most likely be acceptable to the inspections department. And for zoning, all we need to see is the height and the width and the length of it. So what he could use here, he could actually obtain a permit with, at least on our side.
Right, okay. The, his drawing, and that shows the distance to the street. I'm holding up the handwritten drawing. It's not a page number, but it shows the 18-foot distance. That's what he's going to have to live with if this were approved,
Correct. That's the setback he's requesting.
because this is not a to-scale kind of a drawing.
Exactly.
Okay, that was my only question.
I guess, is the applicant here? Would you come forward, please? Maybe we can get further clarification from you. And you are Ms. Connors?
Yes, I am.
And is Mr. Stars here as well?
Yes.
Thank you both. Mr. Smith, would you like to direct a question to them?
I
or-
think they heard my question of staff. You're going to, obviously, this is less, actually, the encroachment is less than what exists right now, so,
I believe so.
because it looks like you're encroaching a little bit closer, but, I mean, it's a kind of a straightforward renovate, really, it's a rebuild, a repair, more than anything else. I can see the
they're falling
condition.
apart.
Yeah. And so it's obviously warranted. It's a safety issue, among other things. I was just looking at the quality of the drawings, and I know the detail on the back page looks like it's kind of a standard detail, but something that's lifted from something else.
And I guess, Mr. Knoxon, the only concern I would have is the stairs on the drawing that Mr. Smith alluded to aren't of the same size. Is that going to be a problem?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
The stairs on on this drawing, the steps are different size. They look like they're different sizes. I think on to scale one, they're fine, but step number 5, for example, to me looks bigger.
Oh,
Step number
correct.
1 and 2 are smaller,
They
shorter.
will actually have to come in with scaled drawings when they get the permit. So that step, they'll scale it out correctly. We don't require scaled drawings for the BZA since we have to shrink them down on 8.5 by 11. Usually these come in on, 18 by 24 or something like that.
Yeah. And the only thing would be to make sure your stairs are all the same size, unless you specifically wanted to have them different.
Our contract from the contractor has like computer-generated plans. I don't know where these are generated.
Yeah, and for our purposes, as Mr. Smith points out, the significant issue is the 18 feet encroachment that you're looking at, and you couldn't go beyond that.
Yeah.
Question of applicant. One of the conditions that we generally put on is that the steps can't be built over or enclosed. And it seems to me that this, I don't know that it begs for, but it certainly would be nice to have some kind of an overhang. So I'm wondering if you chose not to do that for an economics reason. Okay. But then do you understand, though, that if and when in the future you want to do that, you would have to come back and get, okay.
Yes.
Good question. Any further questions? Is anyone prepared to make a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution to approve the subject use permit with the conditions described in the staff report.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Cravens. And for the record right now, this would be a good time. Ms. Cravens and Mr. Smith have both alluded to to conditions, and I think in my opening remarks I also alluded to the fact that the board could impose conditions when we grant a use permit. So please read those conditions carefully. As Ms. Craven points out, with front porches, a standard requirement is that they cannot be built over or enclosed. So that would be one condition. And then another condition is wall checks and making sure that you build them in accordance with what you've submitted and what is done. If you go even 1 inch over, when they go to do a wall check and finalize your drawings, then you would have to come back because you would be out of compliance with the use permit. Okay.
Madam Chair, in looking at the conditions, and by way of discussion, let me ask the staff a quick question, and it has to do with the pad on the back, the concrete pad on the back.
Yes.
Wasn't a part of the request. How does it become a condition?
It would turn into a coverage issue if that were to remain. They used to have a garage there, but it's been demolished, so that brings them into a coverage issue because it's part of the driveway now. So we told them that either they could break that up and take it apart. They did say they have plans at some point to build a new garage, which would probably be larger than that. So if they broke it up, it would be okay. Or they can detach it from the driveway and not park on it and use it as a patio. So they have options for that too.
And I see the description, your description of that in the existing condition now. Thank you. Okay.
All in favor of the motion that we have before us?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Next case tonight is case number V-10764-13-VA-1. This is a variance request by Monica Stapleton to permit a new addition to exceed 50% of the aggregate floor area of the existing building on a lot that does not meet the area requirement for the R27 zoning district. This is for a new 2-story rear addition. It's in the R27 zoning district, premises known as 5518 8th Street South.
And the recommendation of staff is to adopt the attached resolution denying the variance. Is Ms. Stapleton here? Okay. Why don't you have a seat for just a minute? We'll have any questions that the board may have of the staff, and then we'll ask you to come forward. Are there any questions of the staff?
Yes, Madam Chair. Being really familiar with this neighborhood because it's the one that I live in, I, as you know, recognize there are a lot of homes in this community that have done additions similar to the one that this applicant has asked for. An example is shown in the picture that we're looking at right now, the neighbor. Your opposition to the variance request, is it brought about because of your office's strict view of the boundaries for a variance, the limits for a variance?
That's correct.
Okay. And I think just as the chair described in her opening remarks, variance requests are a little different than use permits.
Exactly. I think if this were a use permit case, we wouldn't have any problem.
Right. Coverage, use permits don't apply to coverage cases, though.
Exactly.
So,
Well, this isn't even really a lot coverage case anyway.
No, it's a. Mr. Knox, and I did have a question. In the conclusion, and I think this might have been that being torn with the staff, it does appear that the language in the staff report is inconsistent with the recommendation to deny, because it says the conclusion is the granting of the variance will not be detrimental to neighboring properties or change of character or neighborhood. Let's see. Well, I guess maybe that isn't. I guess that is consistent with what you just indicated to Mr. Smith, that it's not inconsistent, but that it's not in compatibility with the zoning ordinance. When I first read it, I thought, that seems to go with the alternative resolution more than it does the resolution that you're recommending, so. Right, Ms. Stapleton, at this point, do you want to come forward? Is there anything you'd like to tell us?
Actually, the real reason to do the addition in my house is because I have health problems. I want to be in the first floor. And also, I have my daughter and my stepson living with me, and the house is too small for 3 adults.
Mm-hmm. I did have one question. In terms of how your house would abut to the house, to the extension next to your house, what would that look like? Is it going to be the same, or?
Yes, it's a little bit longer, but not too much.
And Mr. Knox, in the past, some of the homes and the variances we've looked at in this neighborhood, there has been the question of how the adjoining happens between those houses. Have you looked at that?
Correct. They seem to be moving the wall over at least a foot from that line, so there would be a gap between them.
And did we find in the past that that's helpful or not helpful? Because I can't remember in terms of runoff whether it's better to have the eaves adjoining so you don't have runoff between the houses, or
I suppose that's a question about having gutters and the 2 eaves running together. Just a design standard.
And so in this case, we'd have the 2 eaves running next to each other? Is that what we would be saying?
Yes.
Any further questions?
Maybe this will address your question also. If you see the proposed rear elevation, if you see the slant of the roof goes to the opposite side, they also have a sort of brick wall on the top. Mm-hmm. So that would direct all the water opposite of the addition to the right.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what the dotted line part meant around the drawings. That was...
Down on the bottom?
No, the circular dotted lines on the different drawings, because it looks like that's the adjoining.
Do you mean on the elevation drawings, or which portion?
It's,
Oh, okay, I see, the sections. Mm-hmm. It just looks like they circled the walls, the new walls.
and I guess that highlighted for me that whole adjoining question.
Okay.
This is a two-story addition, right?
Correct.
So it is going to be taller than the one
That is correct.
that's,
Mhm.
okay.
think in the past when we've looked at this neighborhood, we've recognized the small nature of the sizes of the houses and the sizes of the lots because they were subdivided prior to existing lot size issues, and the duplexes probably would not be allowed today on this size of a lot.
It's substandard. They'd have to get a site plan through the planning commission.
Question of staff. Mr. Knoxon, in the conclusion, you say that there are by right alternatives for this property.
That's correct.
What would the by right alternatives look like?
What would it look like?
Size-wise?
They could do, if you see the addition, the neighboring addition, they could do something that comes out at least to 50%, which you could do a two-story addition, but it would only be about half the size of the existing house. Let's see if I can give you an actual number. I've got it written here in the report.
Like 400.
Exactly.
It'd be about 12 by 16.
Which is about one room on the top and one room on the bottom.
And it would not extend out as far as the existing one that we're looking at?
It would. It would probably exceed that. Let's see. Where's the plat? Sorry?
Could exceed that, still.
Exceed the length?
It'd still come out beyond that. It's my plat here. So it could be about 12.35 feet back, and then 16.5 feet wide. And if they did 2 stories, that would be right at the 50%.
So the addition is about 8 feet longer than could be done by right.
Correct.
Just longer, because it's also wider. Madam Chair, Mr. Knoxon, maybe you provided it, and I apologize if you did. You don't have comparable sizes of these additions approved by variance?
No, I think,
We do. One was approved just recently on 5407 8th Street South. That one was actually a little bit larger than this, by about 50 square feet.
Madam Chair, if I might ask, and the one at 763 South Harrison, which was done in 2010, roughly its size, do you know, Mr. Knoxon?
Fortunately, I do not have that with me.
Okay.
I did look at these, and they're all roughly the same size as what's proposed. That seems to be kind of the norm of what people are doing. Even the by right additions are about the same size, so they're all pretty consistent with each other.
my recollection. Let me see. What they're getting.
Madam Chair, if I might, my inclination is to find that the applicant obviously had clean hands. She came in not knowing that the need for an addition, wanting an addition would require a coming to a body like this and making a request that could or could not be, it could be subject to being voted down. So she had clean hands, and her lot size is an unusual, I believe it's an unusual condition. It's substandard. In general, my view is that that warrants some relief from a strict application of the zoning ordinance. And given that I guess my only concern is, and I'm wondering if the applicant's architect is here to talk to us about what other options they explored to minimize the need for a variance, because being similar in size gives me comfort, but at the same time I'd like to hear for the record what efforts or limitations the architect was under to come up with this plan, and if it could have been scaled back some to minimize the need for a variance.
I guess my question would be, your plans and drawings are contemplating 2 rooms on each floor, and from what Mr. Noxon said, if you went by right, you would only be able to build 1 room behind the house on each floor. Was there any talk to the architect about being able to make it into 2 rooms if you didn't get a bigger size?
Request that.
Huh?
I'm the one request to the architect to do 2 rooms upstairs.
No, but I'm saying, was there any way for him to do 2 rooms within a smaller footprint on the house? Do you think he could have done 2 rooms in that same, in a smaller size, so you wouldn't have to come to the board?
But what I'm doing is a little bit small. My addition is small. The one my neighbor just got approved month ago.
Mm-hmm. I guess, but Mr. Smith, that's how I would interpret the issue, is that Mr. Noxon's determination or statement to us in terms of what she could do by right would be 1 room, and she's trying to get 2 rooms on each floor, and that was the reason.
On each floor. Downstairs is just 1 room.
Well, I thought it looks like 2 bedrooms.
1 on the first
Just
floor,
1
2
room.
on the second floor.
1 on the first floor.
The addition on the first floor, which would obviously help you, and I used to live in one, and I hated the steps. I can totally appreciate, and it was difficult. Now I live in a condominium, so I'm on 1 level, and I appreciate that better. So I understand the need to have 1 level. One of the concerns is a lot of, even though they're similar, and Mr. Noxon described one that's even slightly larger, the additions are yours is wide. It's 4 feet wider than your house right now, and I'm wondering if that could have been trimmed in a little bit. And it's this corridor between the where the new entry is and the
Addition.
on the addition. It's it's a lot of. Could there have been some small savings in space that would make the request less, and maybe not, I don't know, but and I can appreciate, Madam Chair, her understanding relative to her neighbors.
Good evening. Hi. Yeah. I'm her
Have you
daughter.
Will you fill out a speaker slip, please, and just so that we can have that, and give us your name right now, please?
Maria Dolores Rodriguez.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Actually, so I hear you asking about the whether or not the addition could have been done in a smaller footprint. Mm-hmm. To give you a sense of the current size of the 2nd bedroom and the second floor.
Yeah, they're small.
That's the room I currently occupy. I have a single bed and a little desk, and that's pretty much all I can fit in there.
Yeah.
So that should give you an idea of how big the room is currently.
Oh, I know exactly how big they are.
So in terms of trying to conserve some space, I understand the sentiment, and I also understand that there's actually if we can get a little bit room in there, that would be actually more beneficial and more comfortable.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Russell.
I have a couple of questions for staff. What is the required side yard? Is it 10 feet? I see that they have
Correct.
10. And the required rear yard is 25 and front
25 feet.
25. This addition is well within the buildable area of this lot. The 35A4B is a limitation apparently established at some time to limit the size of additions on these properties if the lot was not
Standard size.
not a standard size. Looking at the record of the cases before the BZA, that seems to the BZAs of the past have not been, it's not been an issue. And I would just point out that they're well within the buildable area. So it's sort of it's a requirement that limits the ultimate size of the house on the lot, which in another district, they could actually fill all this space. So it's sort of, it looks like it was established to maintain the original size of these two-family dwellings without much of an opportunity to add to them, and certainly doesn't sort of fit with the desires for people today. So I think I could support this variance based on some of those factors, that we're not extending into any required yards. It's in keeping with some of the other things that have been done. You can have something close to this scale as a matter of right for 2 stories.
Mr. Russell, I just have one question, and that is, in reading the requirements with regard to variances, the one that I'm having trouble with is that the hardship is not generally shared by other properties in the same zoning district. And I guess everything you just said is what's been made difficult for me in this case, because even though I agree other zoning boards in the past have done this, I think the neighborhood itself warrants this, given the size of the houses and the need for people to have more space than what these houses propose, and the fact that the lot sizes can accommodate them. But I'm not sure how we get over this second requirement in the variances. So I don't know if anybody on the board can help me with that.
Well, I guess, Madam Chair, I would say that there's, it almost constitutes a taking this, and thank you, Terry, for clearly describing, it meets the side yard and rear yard setbacks, other than a rule that says you can't make an addition that's greater than 50% of the current size of the structure, even if it meets the side yard, the rear yard, the height, all the requirements of the ordinance otherwise. And you have support of your neighbors that you can't do that, and it doesn't seem to have a connection to a safety concern. And so to me it seems like and I've been one who's pushed for kind of ignoring that, not ignoring the law, but saying that it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't seem to play out, and thus, to me, it constitutes an unreasonable taking by government of a person's right. They're going to meet the side yard, the rear yard setbacks. They're going to meet the height, but the government is imposing a restriction kind of arbitrarily, and I've characterized that as a taking. That is a government action that's not and they don't have any. And the only avenue for an individual to adjust this taking is to come to us. And I'm like Mr. Russell. I have always, I should say, I think I've always supported these because I know the problems. I always like to hear efforts to make it as small of an expansion, so you're not just flaunting that 50% rule, but it seems to be an arbitrary rule by government that works a taking on an individual. With respect to the uniqueness of this, I don't have the numbers in front of me for the other lots, but I would suggest that though they are similar, they're not the same. They are that the area, for example, of this lot is 3,000, and what's the exact number? 3,012 feet. Well, another lot that may have an addition may be 3,016 square feet. So it's not the same. So it is unique in a purely, perhaps, rhetorical way. But I've come to the conclusion that that this is a unique situation in that the lot is substandard and that it would constitute a taking, and the applicant had clean hands. She bought the property thinking that, I'm looking around, other folk have, I can too.
Okay. Well, actually, can I ask Mr. Noxon one more question? So when we're talking about this zoning district, are there other houses outside of this exact neighborhood that are zoned the same way? Comparative analysis?
I believe this is the only R27 that's directly surrounding it.
But are there other R27 zoning districts that would not be impacted in the same way?
Well, I mean, any of them that have regular-sized lots would be affected differently. They'd be allowed to build to the limits, 56% of coverage.
And I guess, to me, then, that would be the way to look at the why the hardship is not generally shared by other properties in the same zoning district, because other properties in the same zoning district would not be subject to the same limitations. And towards that extent, then, I think we can meet all the three standards with regard to the variance. And I'd be ready to accept any motions if there are any.
I'll be happy to make a motion. I move the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached alternative resolution approving variance for the subject site.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Cravens and Mr. Russell. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
Okay, next case tonight is case number V-10765-13-UP-1. It's a use permit request by Peter Tolsdorf and Layla Ames to permit a setback of 13.5 feet to the fence from the 21st Street South right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. And this is to maintain the location of an existing 6-foot-tall fence. This is in the R5 zoning district, premises known as 633 21st Street South.
Thank you. And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution to deny the subject use permit. Any questions of staff? This is one of the ones. Seeing none, are Peter Tolsdorf or Layla Ames present?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. What would you like to share with us this evening?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the board's time, and thanks to Mr. Noxon for all his help throughout this process. I'm Peter Ames. I'm here with my co-owner and wife, Leela, tonight, and we're just here to ask that the existing fence that was there on our property when we moved in 2009 be allowed to stay in its place. We understand the fence was built by the prior owner sometime around 2005 without a permit. When we moved into the house, we had no knowledge that this fence was non-conforming. We were notified of the violation back in December. The fence shields an unsightly side section of the yard, air conditioning units, a door that goes into the basement, as well as a hatch, and protects the privacy of the neighbors. As well, you can see there's shrubbery and trees that were planted around the fence. We don't see any purpose here in requiring that the fence be torn up and moved back. At the suggestion of Mr. Noxon, I asked the neighbors what their thoughts were on this process, and I was very happy to see the support expressed by our neighbors. I received letters from 8 of them, if I may approach.
Yes, please. Do you have one copy or? Okay.
So 8 of our immediate neighbors signed letters supporting the placement of the current fence in its current location, and I should say affirming that the fence was put up prior to us moving in. I also mentioned this to two of my neighbors here tonight, Sal Caffey and Charles Bender. They live across the street from me directly and then across the street to the right. And they offered, by their own volition, to come tonight and speak on our behalf. And I appreciate that, and they might want to get up and say a few words after this. So I appreciate the board's time. I think this is a relatively, hopefully a straightforward matter. The fence has been here for 8 years or so. I don't see how it really harms anybody, and if the board would be willing to allow it to stay in its place, we would be very appreciative.
Okay. Any questions? Yes, Mr. Russell.
How did this get here?
We actually do not have any records on file, no fence permits, no variances, so.
My question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
How did it get?
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I think I did add that to the report, that it was just proactive. It was noticed by one of our zoning enforcement staff. They had another case on the street, happened to notice that the fence was extremely close to the street compared to all the others. So
So these applicants doesn't apply to do anything?
No.
yes, it wasn't a neighbor complaint that we received. So.
The neighbor complaint is a proactive.
And it was proactive from staff? I was under the impression it was a neighbor or somebody complaining.
I put that in my write-up because that was my understanding as well. So
Okay, and that's probably where I read it, is in your write-up. I knew I read it someplace that someone had said it was. Will we be seeing other fences from this neighborhood, Mr. Noxon?
Most likely. We have, I think, something like 15 active cases right now. A lot of them have been brought into compliance recently, according to one of our inspectors who works that area. So we may see some more.
So this isn't one that could be cured even by height. Reducing the height of it, it would have to be moved because of the closeness and proximity, as I read the report.
The height could be taken down, but I mean, at that point, if you saw half the fence down, you might as well just reconstruct it. You can't really cut it apart.
To follow up, Madam Chair, it could remain, but it would have to be 4 feet tall where it is.
Correct, until you reach 25 feet from the right-of-way.
Madam Chairman, I'm curious as to know what the statute of limitations is on a fence that would have been constructed without a permit.
Madam Chair, I want to follow up. I agree. That's a very good question because from what we've seen in the past, there may not be for government action on or should the government be more proactive? Should it, when it sees something within a reasonable amount of time, notify?
But this is, I mean, we're talking probably within the
Latches
statute.
doesn't apply to the
Which is
government, by the way. It
well,
doesn't.
and this is actually relatively close in time from when it was built.
Yeah.
Well, exactly.
We don't know when it was built, actually.
We do not know when it was built. Just the only thing we have on file are aerial images going back to 2005 that show that it was there. We don't have any. We don't have 3D imagery from before then. We have just the 2D images, and the tree canopy and neighboring houses and shadows cover it up, so you can't identify it in those pictures.
No carbon dating.
And when was the house built?
1929, I believe.
Oh. Yeah, this one.
And there was an addition in 2002. Correct. My understanding from talking to my neighbors was that the fence was put up a few years before we bought the house, sometime in the 2005-2006 range.
Madam Chairman, did the letters, what neighbors responded with letters, positive letters to you, either side across the street? I mean,
Yeah, I don't know.
Correct.
everybody closely affected?
Yes, our neighbor to our right, there's a sticky note.
That's
she
the
dropped.
rental with the little Post-it note on it?
Exactly. They're currently renters, so they wanted to get permission from their landlord before signing the letter, but they provided that sticky note. Then we received letters in support from the property, actually it's up there, 8 of the immediate neighbors other than our neighbor to the right. So our neighbor to the east, the other house next to that, the 4 neighbors across the street from us, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 2 additional neighbors immediately in the neighborhood on the street.
That's correct. Yeah, it is.
Sal lives in the house with the house right across the street from us with the 2 stories you can see there. He's lived in the neighborhood for 65 years? 65 years or so you've been in the neighborhood?
You can't say that.
And
Okay, actually, if you're going to come forward, why don't we have you come forward, fill out a speaker slip, because we really would like to, we've got some history from the neighborhood, and if you could give us your name and then fill out a speaker slip, that would be helpful.
Hi, my name is Charles Bender. I live at 626 South 21st Street across the street, and I support his proposal to keep the fence as it is. He's stained it since he's moved in. He's improved the appearance of the property. I have absolutely no objections. In fact, I think it has added to the appearance of the neighborhood. What doesn't appear is the property to the right facing his. The fence that is there, to me, is far more objectionable. It looks like a cattle pen. It's right on the sidewalk. It's about 4 feet high, and it detracts from the neighborhood. There are fences 6 feet tall next to the sidewalk at various, you go 2 or 3 blocks in any direction, and you'll find 6-foot block height fences right on next to the sidewalk, which I find deteriorates or detracts from the neighborhood.
Which probably are those cases.
Does it all.
Which are probably the cases we'll be hearing in the future that Mr. Noxon talked about, is some of those that are right next to the sidewalk and 6 feet tall, because those would be in
And they
violation.
have been up for many years. I don't know why it's taken 4 or 5 years for someone to notice that this is not in compliance. It seems that common sense should rule, regardless of what the measurements may be. It is appropriate for the neighborhood. It's appropriate for that house. None of the neighbors have any objections to it. In fact, we were surprised when I got a letter saying that there was this issue. We couldn't understand what it was about. It did not make any sense to me. So I fully support, leave it where it is. It does improve the neighborhood. It does not detract at all. So,
Thank you. If you fill out a speaker slip, and if we can have your other neighbor tell us what he thinks, that would be
Madam
great.
Chair, one question of Mr. Bender, though.
My name is Sal Caffey. I've been in this Arlington County since 1930.
Okay.
I'm 92 years old. And I've been living in that house across the street from there for 36 years.
What's your house number?
630 21st Street, South Arlington. I've improved my house 7 different times. I've got 7 building permits to prove it. But I don't see any objection to that fence.
Well, thank you very much.
However, the man built that fence to hide his boat.
When was it built?
Huh?
When was it built?
Ooh, about 9 years ago, I guess, when he tried to hide that. Then he had a little cover on the end above where the boat, above that fence, to hide the boat.
That was a problem. Okay, if you can fill out a speaker slip, that would be helpful.
Madam Chairman, I have a question. When was this house improved to look like it does? I don't see anything here about
Siding, porch.
before you all bought it?
Oh, yes.
You bought it just like this?
Completely as is. We repainted the house, that's all we've done, and stained the fence.
Do you all have any record of when this house was? I mean, there was probably a dormer put on the back. There's a 2-car garage in the rear.
I don't recall seeing anything for any additions. I did see one for a garage. I think that was back in '02. We had a permit on file?
A building
That
permit.
detached
Oh, they
garage?
probably didn't necessarily need a permit for the stuff that they've done here. It's siding and.
Exactly, it's siding, unless they did anything structural to the
Thought maybe
porch.
it looks like it would have a dormer on the back, but, that could have been done a long, long time ago, too. Put new windows and siding and all of that. The garage makes sense because it looks new, both in construction and design. Usually, people aren't doing garages or back in the day, didn't do garages with that much character. It's the new Arlington.
And Mr. Knoxon, the fence runs along the property line, or?
Correct. Well, all except for the front portion, of course.
Yeah.
That's along the property line, so it goes back towards the front porch.
So the real issue here is the height is in violation.
Exactly.
If I may add, I think in terms of aesthetics, the current height matches nicely with the height of the porch.
No, I think it's very nicely built. I was surprised at the color in your picture, in these pictures here, because the earlier pictures we had were before this was stained, obviously. Or maybe just not as good a picture, I don't know.
I think so.
Any further questions? Okay, if I can get speaker slips, I need those from the two people that testified, okay? And if you'll just give them to our assistant over here to the right of me.
So what kind of a slippery slope might we be going down with fences if we're going to be seeing a lot of them? Do we have to make our own criteria for the amount of time it's been there, if it was a previous owner? What kind of criteria do we use?
I think because it's a use permit, it'll be the criteria that we talked about with regard to compatibility of the neighborhood. And those can be done as we do with everything on a case-by-case basis. Will it adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing in the neighborhood? Will it not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood? And it will not be in conflict with the purposes of the master plans and land use zoning and related policies of the county. And here the question becomes the setback, as we would look at a porch or any other setback.
And the setback is fine.
Yeah, vis-a-vis this fence. It's not fine in accordance with the zoning.
Right, but in terms of the setback of the house, it certainly meets that.
So it's just the fact that, it's too tall for what's there. But I don't think that we set a precedent by doing something with regard to this fence and this house and this location vis-a-vis any of the others that might be coming before us. And I think I'm aware of some of those 6-foot fences that are right on the sidewalk. As I've driven through that neighborhood on my way from Gunston Middle School to Pentagon City, you definitely see some, and I've wondered whether they had permits, because I'm thinking, those seem a little close to the sidewalk.
And Madam Chair, if I might, I'm going to look at a fence close to the sidewalk a lot differently than I'm going to look at this one. And these applicants, they had no idea that there was anything in the world wrong with their situation, and nor did the neighbors. It was a attentive county worker. So,
am I hearing a motion, Mr. Smith?
I would be happy to make a motion. Contrary to the staff's recommendation, I'd move that the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the subject use permit request to maintain the fence, subject to that the existing fence location be maintained, and that I guess you have to get a permit to put the fence that exists into conformity. So that with those conditions, that you maintain its location and get a permit, I would move that we approve the application for a subject use permit.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You now are one step closer to having it fully legal. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much for your time.
And you might want to warn those folk who come in who are neighbors, if theirs is, it's not going to be a cakewalk.
Thank you so much for coming in.
You're walking good for 92. Oh, my God. God bless you. Good.
Mr. Caffey, thank you so much for coming in.
I've been in this county since 1930.
Wow.
My father was a shoemaker. We lived in Boston. I worked at Kirby Dodge. I don't know if you ever went to Kirby Dodge at night.
Oh, Kirby Dodge, yes. Mm-hmm.
Walked from Boston to Cannon.
To build a new.
Wow.
$10 a week.
Oh, wow.
And my mother and father got $8 of that too. For
Yeah, it did.
my other brothers, you know.
Good.
Six in the service. All their package. Fine shape.
Thank you, Mr. Caffey.
Look at it.
All right. Next case tonight is case number V-10766-13-UP-1. It's a use permit request by Fareed and Federal Workney to permit a setback of 11.9 feet to the eave and 12.4 feet to the wall of a new one-story rear addition from the 11th Street South right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required, and a setback of 4.8 feet to the 3 egress window wells from the right side property line instead of 8 feet as required. Also an aggregate side yard of 15.8 feet instead of 18 feet as required for a new one-story rear addition and 3 egress window wells. It's in the R5 zoning district, premises known as 1539 12th Street South.
Thank you, Mr. Noxon. And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution to deny the subject use permit for the rear addition, but to approve the request for the 3 egress window wells. And I believe we have a new packet that we received this evening. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
For the record.
There's just a slight change to the wording of the alternative resolutions. Actually, both resolutions, you'll see. Just clarification.
I'm sorry, would it be too much trouble? Can you show us exactly where the changes are?
Under the resolution, you'll see where it says, "Now therefore be it resolved that the BZA hereby denies the use permit for the rear one-story addition, but approves the 3 side egress window wells, subject to the following." Before it just stated, approves the use permit for the approves the use permit for the 3 side egress window wells. We just wanted to make it consistent with what the motion says before the resolution.
So it's just the moving language, the now therefore be it resolved paragraphs in both resolutions?
Correct.
Madam Chairman,
Mr. Russell?
was this begun without a building permit?
Yes.
Correct.
I believe that's what the report indicates. Mr. Noxon, that is correct?
Getting it on the record.
And how did it come to the attention of the county, Mr. Noxon?
If Cheryl, if you could turn the picture down to the very last one. There were some retaining walls in the neighborhood over the last 2 years that have been failing. And our code enforcement staff actually recognized this and went up to talk to the owners, and then found that there was also a crowding issue in the home too. So code enforcement caught on to that, opened up a case on it. That's part of why the window wells had to be built. There were people living in the basement, and these egress window wells were required. They also found that there was an addition that looked very close to the rear lot line.
But in reviewing that, that's not a problem? The addition? Or is that the subject?
The addition is the subject, as well as the window wells. The window wells we added just to bring them into conformance. We required the applicant to add the window wells. Actually, code enforcement required that. But the problem is they were on the 8-foot side, and so you need 3 feet of interior clearance on those window wells, which brings the wall of it a few inches closer.
Any other questions of Mr. Noxon? Is it Fareed Fetelwork Wonek?
Walkner.
Wachnick? Wachnick. Mr. Wachnick, do you want to come forward, please? Is there anything you'd like to share with us this evening? The county is recommending that we not approve your request, so would you like to tell us anything?
Well, what I would like to tell is, I would like to make the little addition, for my family's sometimes rare sleep and for studies of, my family. So I'm not taking anybody's property. It's on the back, and there are people also on the 11th Street, even closer than my yard, built already. So I am kindly request if it can be approved to build that addition.
Mr. Noxon, are there other homes in the neighborhood that have additions abutting closer to the property line?
There are a few if you look at the list I've attached here under the staff analysis. Some of these were homes that were built before the 1950 zoning ordinance, but also others were approved by variances in different locations. Some of these backed up to a street, and some of them backed up to rear property lines.
So the neighborhood has a lot of houses that have no backyards, essentially.
Correct. It's a very peculiar block, especially. It's treated like a through lot, so you have streets on both sides.
Do the board members have any questions?
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Walkner, have you seen the comments from or spoken with Lydia and Leonard Peel, 1532, Leland, Richard Barber at 1541, or Roger Ray at
39, it's on top of.
No, that's his.
That's his ad.
Yeah, well, they must be near, because have you spoken with those folks? Because they've sent letters and email to the county opposing your request, all saying that they have a concern about the use of the home as a boarding house, a boarding home. Are you familiar with these concerns?
Yeah, I'm concerned. I was renting the house. Now I have 3 people. I renovated it, and Mr. Rogers is my neighbor, and he made a fence. Actually, he came to my property, and he didn't know also. And on the right side, she's here, my other neighbor. When I was buying the property, the owner, he built a garage entire to her property. So I noticed that, and when the county comes, they told me, and I agreed that I will take that down. So I didn't build it. She's here. It was bought like that, built before. So he said, because of the coverage of the land, I will take it. It was not my property also, but it was bought as it is. I didn't build it.
Okay, I think, did you get copies of these letters, Mr. Noxon? Would he have received copies?
I do have copies.
If we could provide them to the applicant. I'd like to give him an opportunity to actually look at those letters and then maybe come back to the case if other people would be interested in deferring this into the end of the agenda, which would give you time to read these letters. Mr. Wolfnock? Okay. And then in addition, think about the comments that you might make to the contents of the letter of whether you're living in the house or not living in the house. Those will be things that we will want to talk about when we come back to your case. In addition, if you do have a neighbor here to testify in favor or against, we'd ask that she come forward and fill out a speaker slip so that when we recall the case, we know who that person is. Or if any people are here to testify against it as well. Okay, so we'll come back to this case, or if I can get a motion to defer.
Chair, to the end of the agenda.
Okay, thank you. A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll come back to this case. Can we call the next case, Mr. Noxon?
Yes. Next case is V-10767-13-UP-1. It's a use permit request by John Lowe to permit a setback of 14.7 feet to the steps, 15.4 feet to the eave, and 16.7 feet to the porch base from the North Kentucky Street right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. It's for the construction of a new covered front porch with steps. This is in the R6 zoning district, premises known as 867 North Kentucky Street.
And the recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution to approve the subject use permit with conditions. Are any questions of the staff? Mr. John Lowe or his representative here?
Kathy Lowe, I'm his wife, he's out of town.
Okay, and you are?
Kathy Lowe.
Okay. Are you also an owner in the property? Okay. And is that K or C?
K.
Catherine.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I wanted to know I love porches.
Yes, well, Mr. Smith loves porches. That is a matter.
It's a modest porch. It's only 8 feet deep.
That should be a standing notation in the staff reports and recommendations. Mr. Smith loves front porches.
We have a lot of children in our neighborhood, and I've got 3, and they all play out front. And
That was my domain as a child. You could play on the porch. And all the kids in the neighborhood, we all had porches, and you communicated across the street with your neighbors, and it was the way we grew up. So I think it was a good way
Stay on
to,
that porch.
It was, yeah, to stay on that porch. And
You off that porch, it'll burn you up.
it became the world, so I became very fond of porches.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'd like to ask a question of the
No, please.
staff. I can't tell what the, and you've probably got it in here, what the existing setback of the front of the house is.
Right at
Existing
20.
setback?
This bad?
It is approximately 24.7 feet,
Almost 25.
so non-conforming to begin with.
Well, that was probably a conforming measurement at the time it was
Possibly.
built and the earth moved.
Technology or the
times,
earthquake,
so.
right.
Or the street got narrower as it was from the center of the street,
No, I'm sure it's the,
or got wider.
I thought so. My math was off.
Madam Chair, might I ask, looking at this photograph, some work has already been begun, it looks like.
No, what happened, a tree fell on, we had a portico, and, that steps going down over to the left where you see the retaining wall has gotten knocked over. There was a tree on our neighbor's property, and it wiped our whole portico out.
And was there it looks like, who was to the left of the door? Or
There was actually, there used to be, you're talking about in the front of the house?
in the front.
There used to be beams there. It was a little portico, and the roof was damaged as well, so that roof right now just has a temporary repair, so that if we can do the porch, then we can, cover that up with the new roof line.
When did this happen?
September. It was not very fun, and we were...
June, the derecho?
September.
Actually, it was September. It was after they, we think that the storms had weakened the tree, and it just, no storm, nothing, just the middle of the night it fell. Took out my car, took out the porch.
Oh.
I lost a car to a tree once, too.
And then it was fun struggling with insurance, and now we got that all dealt with, so now hopefully we can get our porch.
Let's see, comments from neighbors, Madam Chair, let's see.
14, Mr. Smith.
Sure.
Yikes.
14 people signed a letter in the packet.
Ah, yes, I see, okay.
All of Kentucky Street.
They all want to swing on the porch.
Happy hour at the Lowe's on the porch.
Any further questions? Looks like a very nice porch, too. And like Ms. Craven said, you're already doing the portico and the coverage, so you're doing it all at once, which is nice. You won't have to come back.
Good point.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
I'd
Mr.
be
Smith.
happy to make a motion if you're ready to take one.
I'm ready.
I'd move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution granting subject use permit V-10767-13-UP1, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, I think I'll let Ms. Freshman
I
take
think so.
her first second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, your permit has been granted.
Great, thank you so much, I appreciate it.
That is 5-0, I'm sorry. I didn't say no's, but
Our next case tonight is V-10768-13-UP-1. It's a use permit request by Susan Leitma and Ronald Poletsky to permit a setback of 0.3 feet to the trellis, 5.8 feet to the eave of a new second-story addition, and 6 feet to the eave, and 7.3 feet to the porch base from the right side property line instead of 10 feet as required, and also 19 feet to the steps, and 22.3 feet to the porch base, and 21.9 feet to the second-story addition from the North Fillmore Street right-of-way instead of 25 feet as required. And finally, an aggregate side yard of 11 feet instead of 18 feet is required. And this is for the construction of a new eave for a second-story addition above the existing main building footprint, a new second-story addition above a new encroaching front porch, also a new covered front porch with steps, and also an existing trellis on the right side of the home. It's in the R6 zoning district, premises known as 305 North Fillmore Street.
and this is another case where we have two packets, Mr. Noxon. The recommendation is to adopt the attached resolution to approve the subject use permit for the new eave on the second-story addition above the existing building footprint, a new second-story addition above an encroaching covered front porch, and a new covered front porch with the conditions, but to deny the existing trellis. And could you also tell us, this actually feels heavier than the other one, so what the changes were from the packet we read?
It shouldn't be heavier. I'm not sure why. Maybe different paper I used this time.
Maybe.
We haven't added anything. It was the same thing as two cases before where we just changed the wording of that resolution.
Oh, so you,
They can
and
match the
you
motion.
put the denial at the front of the resolution. Okay. Any further questions of staff?
Do we have a picture of the offending trellis?
Yes, that's what I want to
I
see.
thought I saw one, but in the packet. I saw the drawing in the packet. Okay.
Could staff, I should know this, but could you explain why that doesn't comply? It's taller than 6 feet?
It's actually the fact that it's an accessory structure and has to meet the same setbacks as the main building, so they need to have at least 8 feet on that right side. Excuse me,
not a
10
gate.
feet on that right side.
That's not a gate. That's an accessory structure.
It's not considered a fence to us.
Seriously.
So if they cut off the trellis part, they can keep the gate, they just can't have the coverage? Is that what this issue is?
Correct.
Or we can approve.
It's not even a covered, I mean, it's not a coverage issue. It's not a variance. It's just the placement of the structure.
But I'm covered in terms of if you took the
Exactly.
trellis part off and you just had the fence, it's not a problem. It's not because it's attached to the house, it's just, again, because,
That's correct.
okay.
If it was attached, it would still have to meet that side yard of 10 feet.
Wow.
And how long has the trellis been here, Mr. Noxon?
Sorry?
How long has it been on the house? Because that's been, it seemed as if it was there for a long time.
It says at least 25
A neighbor
years.
did, exactly, the very last page, a neighbor did state that it's been there for at least 25 years. We just don't have any record of permits or anything for it.
That handwritten part about the trellis was written by Mr. Dorfman, in addition to his comment down here. Is that right? Looks great and will have a blah,
Correct.
blah, 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 Mark Dorfman. Only because I know Mark Dorfman, so that I know who that was. Otherwise, I wouldn't know that.
How did you know that signature?
Because I know this person, and I know that he lives right next door.
I mean, I know the person, but I wouldn't have. Okay, no more questions from staff. Are Susan Lietma or Ronald Paletsky here? Both of them, for the record, are present. Would you like to share anything at this point?
Just that the affected neighbor, I'd like to keep the trellis if at all possible. It has been there since we bought the house, and the affected neighbor, Mr. Dorfman, is not offended by it. He thinks it looks nice. It's pretty small. It's towards the back of the house. Hardly even see it from the street. I think that's really the only issue for the front porch. I think everybody likes front porches, I hope. So.
The rest of the recommendation goes in your favor. Anything further?
This is a great design. Really nice.
Ms. Lietzema, are you from Michigan?
No, I'm from California.
Okay.
Random.
Common name on the western part of the western side of the state, near like Holland, Michigan.
Anybody ready to make a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd be happy to.
You've just been making motions all night, Mr. Smith.
It's to kind of, your Mrs. Freshman's first meeting and yours chairing, you want to not have too many lulls. And in respect to Mr. Noxon, we respect his opinion greatly, and often the office has policies that they kind of apply, and you heard him describe this as an accessory structure, which is, it's a legal term of art. It's described in the zoning ordinance. But I think someone else said in another case that we should use some common sense and be reasonable too. And I see this trellis, if you will, as really the structure that's holding a gate. And given its long-standing placement, I don't have a problem with it at all. And therefore, I'd adopt an alternative resolution approving the subject use permit for V-10768-13-UP1 as requested.
Second.
And subject, of course, to the conditions listed in the staff report.
It's been moved and seconded. I do have one further question of the staff in light of the motion to adopt the alternative resolution. If the trellis comes into disrepair, will they need to come back? Or, I mean, I don't see anything in the alternative resolution that discusses a time limitation on the approval of that trellis. What would be the position of the staff should it come into disrepair because it's non-conforming? Would they have to come back and get another use permit, or will it always be covered if they want to fix it structurally?
If they have to remove it, they have to come back.
So if they have to remove it or if they have to repair it, they would have to come back.
They could do repairs, say they need to, repair a board or paint it or something.
But if the base needed, I just think that if something's been there for a long time, the possibility is it could rot at the base. And then my concern would be, in other kinds of zoning cases, that would be a rebuilding of the structure and would itself necessitate a new use permit. So I'm just asking that question so people would know.
Okay.
Ms. Cozart.
I think in a case like this, the approval of the use permit has brought it into conformance. So therefore, they have the right to have it. It's conforming because you've passed a resolution making it conforming. So therefore, if the thing falls down and they want to build the exact same trellis back, I would allow that.
Okay.
I couldn't let them build another trellis with a different design because that's not what you approved.
Okay.
But since you've made it conforming now, it would be allowed to be rebuilt the way it is now.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure of that because I know in some instances we have put limitations on the other side where we would approve something that's bringing it into conformance but would not allow it to continue, and we didn't put any of those limitations in the alternative resolution. So I wasn't sure if the consequence would be, as you're describing, that they could rebuild the exact same thing should it become necessary without having to get a new use permit. So that is part of the record now as well, since we've gotten that clarification. And I think that also helps you in the future should that become an issue. Just recognize you couldn't change the trellis design if you had to come back at some point and rebuild it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Anything further? We have a motion. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Opposition? The motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I move we take Mr. Tom's case off the...
Do we want to do, is Mr. Tom here? Oh, yes, he is.
He's here.
Yes.
And I move that we take his case off the table.
Second.
So we are going back to case V-10753-13-VA-1, a variance request by Tim Tom, owner, to permit a total lot coverage of 43.9% instead of 38% as required. Mr. Tom, do you want to come forward? Before you came, we did ask Mr. Noxon to indicate what changes were made from last month with regard to this, and he did indicate that you have come back with another proposal that does in fact reduce the size of the driveway that you were requesting from what was requested before. But as it's still not in compliance, the staff is not recommending approval. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us? We would also note on the record that you have obtained letters in support of the expansion that were not part of the record last month. Anything else you would like to share with us?
I took Mrs. Craven's recommendation, shrink it down. I shrunk it down even further. I have to say that I never knew that the coverage was a factor when it came to driveways, as it was explained to me when I first built the house. The reason for the setbacks is so firemen can rush in all around and so on. So when I built the house, I didn't expand it to the lot, to the maximum size. I shrunk it down. The builder presents a option of models. And I said, hey, Arlington's got setbacks and whatever requirements you have. I come from New York. There's no such thing as, too much land. I thought all that land is just, should build up to it. However, I told the builders to make sure it complies with Arlington County codes. And I went through the entire process. No one told me otherwise. When I built the house, it complied. Mm-hmm. Now, what I was responding to was the renter's request to put in the driveway because it was so dangerous to back out onto that street. And that's what I'm trying to do. And there's a difference of 3.7%. And I have reduced it from 52% ground coverage. All right? So I thought at first that was a win-win situation for me, for everyone involved. Now it's become a safety issue, and I understand Mr. Noxon has to balance, or you all have to balance the safety with the coverage area. But no, all I can do is present it to you, and it's up to you whether you want to respond to that safety problem.
Board members, any questions of Mr. Tom?
Mm-hmm. I do have one question. So in your proposed 8-foot wide driveway, the apron, the driveway apron is still 12 feet. So it just at the point where the driveway apron ends, you just narrow it down to 8 feet. Is that the idea?
Curve right into the 8 feet.
Curve right into it.
So I think that should be sufficient. 8 feet's okay. And if you need it less, then you tell me what I need to do to comply. But.
And then so you have some of the grass that you were losing, you get to keep, right?
I was going to landscape it, that little curve.
Right. So you not only behind it toward the steps, but also between the driveway and the sidewalk, there will now be green.
Yeah. Well, flowers, I plan to put flowers.
Well, I certainly prefer this to the other design.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Russell.
I was going to ask Cheryl, is there an aerial that shows the other houses or a bird's eye? It doesn't help. Here.
So the one 2 houses up has a pretty wide driveway.
Oh, that asphalt one.
Mm-hmm.
I was sort of looking for, did anybody else have 2 curb cuts? And did anybody else have a circular driveway in front of their house?
Two. Remember last month,
I
Mr.
thought there
Knox
was.
described that one at the very bottom. You can see the circular. That's the only other one.
Mm-hmm.
But then the one across the street, it looks like that's all cement. Is that correct?
Exactly. It is all cement. Exactly.
They have about a lot and a half, so they have a little more space to play with.
A little more space for concrete.
They're wider. You can tell with the
He's
lot.
only 55 feet wide.
But in terms of the appearance,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely much more
Coverage.
out there in terms of what we're doing in the front of the home.
Yeah, that house on the bottom, my house used to look identical to that one. So in terms of enlargement, you could see where the difference is. But to enlarge it that amount, which I think is about 6 foot all the way down, I removed the detached garage. So I figure that's kind of a trade-off. But the benefit of doing that was I eliminated that long driveway that used to be there and the semicircular driveway.
Which is, if you remember, that's why there's 2 aprons in this lot. Is there used to be a circular driveway?
On this one?
Mm-hmm.
There used to be a circular driveway?
Yeah, identical to that house on the bottom.
Like the one down below at the bottom.
So you had the 2 curb cuts before the house was constructed?
Yes, and I did want more grass, that's why I removed it.
Well, and this was a tear-down build.
Mm-hmm.
It was structurally unsound. I had a structural engineer that lived in it, and she told me that. So the options either make some Band-Aid fixes or just do it. I also had other problems. There was a flooding, black mold, a whole bunch of other problems, and not energy efficient at all. So.
Any additional questions? Or Ms. Freshman, do you have any questions since I think you were in the audience last month, so you heard the discussion, but you didn't have a chance to ask questions last month?
No, not really. I guess I always feel as if it's a new house, then I understand that you asked that the house be in conformance, but didn't take into account the driveway or or other parts of this lot that were going to be counted.
Yeah, I really didn't realize that. And of course, back then, I thought the straight driveway would solve the problem for everybody. No, more grass now, and there's a shorter driveway to come out. What I didn't expect was that once it was done, how difficult it was to pull out because the street's gotten a lot busier. And
well, I
George
think
Mason's always been busy.
the street has always been busy. I used to live a couple blocks from here. And I think in building the absolute largest house you could, you did limit options for the rest of the property. So I think that is a factor.
I shrunk the house down from the plan.
No, I understand that.
And it would cost more to build a smaller house than that one because this is an NDI home.
That is still your decision to make.
And
Mr. Russell.
I have a question for the staff. Let's see. How wide is the existing driveway? I see that it's 25 feet deep, basically. What the width of it is.
Yeah.
Tell you real quick.
I thought we looked at that last month. But.
Yeah, that's what I thought. For some reason, I've linked them up as both being 12.
There's not a measurement on the plan.
Looking at about 14 feet wide. 14 feet wide at the widest point. It's kind of variable.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was saying it's just variable from there, about 14, 13, around there.
Now, the house is in the exact same position as the former house was. I mean, I didn't take up more room in the front. Look at the house on the bottom. It's identical. It's lined up exactly that way. So I'm not encroaching on driveway space. I've encroached on the back, but once again, I gave up a lot of coverage to expand to that size.
Mr. Tom, but the issue is if you look at the house across the street, which does have driveway all across the front of it, for
Yes.
example, the issue is that lot is wider, and so you have more green space than what your lot allows you to do because it's a smaller lot size. So that's the restriction that we're looking at, is that on the size of the lot that you have, then total coverage exceeds it. Now, I do see that you have gone down substantially from your original request to the 43.9%.
Yes.
And I appreciate that and the efforts that you were taking to do that. And I also appreciate the safety issue that exists for the current people living in that house trying to get in and out of that driveway. Mr. Russell.
I have another question of staff. This property, including the existing driveway, is right on the coverage here?
Correct.
So we can't really add a foot to anything.
No.
In order to get a turnaround, maybe not a circular, but say a turnaround, you might be able to achieve that by narrowing that very big driveway that's there, leave some of that space in the turnaround part, sort of a hammerhead, or have a much less use permit request, or variance request. I'm sorry, this is not a use permit. By adjusting the size of the existing straight in. I think we had, Cheryl, could you pull up the picture of the front of the house? See, the driveway is as wide as that whole opening rather than just the width of the garage door. So when I look at it, there might be some opportunity to take some off the left side of that driveway, maybe even some off the right a little bit, and then create a way to, if you pulled straight in to the garage, then when you got ready to leave, you could turn around and turn it around to come out the front way, because that's what they were trying to achieve by doing the circular driveway. What the circular driveway seems to do as an additional function is create more parking spaces.
I know Mr. Smith recommended that last time, and we did look at it. I videotaped the attempt to do that hammerhead maneuver. And if you look at the picture, that driveway is deceptively wide. There is not enough room to do that maneuver. If I pull out that garage, which I did test drive it, and try to put the back end, into that supposed hammerhead stuff, I almost bumped into a pedestrian. And what it does is a bumper hits that first square of the sidewalk.
Mhm.
That's as far as you can turn.
So how did the picture that we have the car sitting in it get there?
Sitting on the grass.
Well, yeah, but that's where I was saying to put the hammerhead.
Yeah. And that's what, Madam Chair, and that's what I was, otherwise you have to back out onto the street, but you would have a little, like what they do across the street.
Yeah.
They don't, they pull in, and then on that same pad, they do they just back up in a half, go 90 degrees and then pull out.
If you show the overhead, you can see, and I spoke to Philip, he had a hard time with that too, but he's got a lot more space to make that turn. I don't.
True, but you could do, the cars, it's going to be a tough maneuver no matter what. Other folk on that street who, they have to do that themselves. The house next door, to the I guess that would be to the west, and the next one, they both have to do that same thing. You pull in, and then they have to actually back out onto the street.
Because it looks like they have a longer driveway that they can pull back and turn around and then come back out.
Maybe they can in the backyard. They can turn around. Maybe I don't know, but. I bet a lot of folks simply back out on, and because I see, I drive on George Mason all the time. I see people have to wait and then back out onto the street. It is more difficult,
Yeah,
But-
they're doing it now, and it's chewing up the grass. They can't stay on that driveway.
They do that on George Mason, it's done on all these major streets that, Washington, all over Arlington, where there's traffic. It's just the kind of thing that you have to kind of deal with. You don't put in a circular drive in front of every house to avoid having to back onto the street and wait for traffic. Or if you do put in a circular drive, you don't exceed the lot coverage in doing so. And you built the house literally as big as you could.
It's as big as what was in the model, and it's really not that much bigger. If you're saying that I could chop the house down, look at it. Where is it you suggest I chop, and how much extra space would there be?
Can you chop the house down at all?
No.
You've got the biggest...
To build a smaller house compared to the house on the bottom. The only difference is that back end.
The difference
I
is
didn't do anything to the front end.
A small percentage of lot coverage is what it is, about 5.
Well, I guess, Mr. Tom, in looking at the picture, and we can't see the house at the bottom to totally see this, but it doesn't look like they have a garage. They're using the circular drive in lieu of a garage, going to Mr. Russell's point of having cars parked off the street on that circular drive.
I think they have a garage detached in the back, just like I had.
Right, but that's the difference. You gave up that detached garage, as you said, to get the larger house in terms of lot coverage. They did not give that up, but they were able to keep the circular drive. But as you look at it, their house, they're not then having the same level of driveway coverage in the front of the house. They have more open space in the front of the house, which goes to the question we have to look at, which is, what's the impact ultimately of the lot coverage with regard to your property? As you compare it to your neighbor's properties, I think the one that's more favorable towards your position is the one 2 up with the very large driveway. But again, it looks to me that it's got the same benefit that the house across the street has, in that it's probably a larger lot. So that's the reason they can have a wider driveway, because they have a wider lot, which allows them to have more coverage of the driveway. Because we're talking 5%. So it's at this point you have reduced it substantially. I guess one of my concerns, my difficulty is, I do look at the safety issue ultimately involved here, and the fact that there's already an existing driveway cut in the property. And that you have been working to try and reduce the size. I think that in addition to the hammerhead option that was discussed last time, there was the question to you of what you could do in terms of reducing the size of the existing cement on the driveway to try and reduce that footprint a little bit more. And I think I'd be more comfortable with a 3% overage than a 5% overage. You might be able to obtain that extra 2% by reducing the width of the existing driveway. But I think you're right, there's also some level of deception to that as well. But it does appear that the driveway goes further out than the actual need of the garage door. So you could, I think, obtain those extra footages by taking it off the left side of that driveway and then, coming down. Not the right side, I recognize that, but off the left side. So, bringing it into just where the door goes up on the garage and taking all that other part of the driveway off. Expanding your grass that way. Did you think about that?
Foot or 2 off the left side.
Right.
Well, there's no harm in doing it. It's just the expense of having to go through all that now.
Right.
You're gonna make is that?
Yeah, but in terms of whether you can do what you would need to do for the safety, I think that would be. I think we might be able to get enough support to do that, because I'm not hearing necessarily support for your current proposal, because as Ms. Freshman indicates, when the house was built, even though you did nothing wrong, because you did say, build it in compliance, you built it without understanding the consequence for making any additional coverage of the driveway or the circular driveway, because that wasn't factored into your house. And I take you at your word that you didn't understand that, but that's the reality of what we have to deal with, which is, can we grant that variance in light of the fact that it's not a hardship? and you weren't here when I read the rules in the beginning of it, but for us to grant a variance, it has to be some hardship that doesn't exist to the other lots, and the only hardship that exists because of how you built the house, not because of an existing feature on the lot.
All the lots. It's just not unique to the other lots, and that's what's stated in here
Right,
as well.
but Mr. Tom, that's another factor then that makes it not be able to grant the variance. So since you missed the beginning, let me just say, you have to produce undue hardship. The hardship is not generally shared by other properties in the same zoning district. So the fact that you say it's existing for all of the houses actually hurts you rather than helps you to get the variance. And that the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property, and that the character of the district will not be changed by the granting of the variance. The problem we're having is even though there's already an existing circular drive 2 houses up, so I'm not sure that it would necessarily be difficult to the characteristics, I think it's hard to meet the hardship issue here when you haven't minimized the impact in the neighborhood. So, I think one more attempt to reduce the size of the driveway might be beneficial to you in terms of getting this variance, but I can't guarantee that that would happen at that point either.
Madam Chair, I think Ms. Craven talked about it last month. In looking at this picture in front of us, if from that left side, if you came straight out with the driveway from the edge of the house and took off a triangle, you would gain some green space. And with your 8 feet wide circular part versus the 12 feet, maybe you're going to get much closer to the coverage area. Mm-hmm. Personally, I think it's a convenience, but at that point, I might be persuaded that it is not generally shared. You have a hardship that's not generally shared, and that I might be able to find a way, but some of this is going to have to come off. You're going to, and regardless of the cost, you're going to have to take some off, not just narrow what you want to add to, but what exists already. I mean, you're going to have to shave in order to add. It seems like to me.
And if you can't do it, get to the low lot coverage by doing that, then at that point, though, if you come back to us and you've shown us that you've taken every effort to reduce the size, that puts us in a better position in terms of finding the elements that we need to find to grant the variance than we are right now. Because the plan before us right now, I don't think meets the elements that we can grant the variance for.
Well, you're on the way. You certainly have shown that we can do something, but I see their point that in order to get us to approve something, you're going to have to work on that wide driveway.
Madam Chair, because there was a circular drive initially, helps me to get to a belief that another one can be achieved. I just don't think with what you have right now that I could support something that would increase the lot coverage without something coming off.
So you would support 1 feet off, 2 feet off, 3 feet off, or what? And
I don't know what percentage it would.
right?
I don't know what percentage it will result in. That's what you would have to, perhaps if you had an architect.
Comply with all of you, but you're not giving me any guidance, and every time I make an attempt, you reject it.
Yeah.
That's the problem I have.
It's not to argue. If you had an architect here, he might be able to help you by telling us what percentage that would be.
I went to a surveyor, professional surveyor. They were the ones that recommended the original driveway.
I don't think you heard me, but
no, Mr. Noxon, if we did go the 14, you said at a certain point it's 14 feet, and how long is the driveway?
21.2.
You have 21.2 feet in length.
So if you take 1 foot off of 22 point, what would the math be? Do we get any substantial reduction in the coverage by taking off a foot?
it's a triangle.
I couldn't really tell you because it's triangular exactly. I could take a guess at it. You really need a survey or CAD or something to calculate.
I just want to know whether it's even worth the exercise, because if at the end of the day he can't obtain anything, then I might entertain the issue differently. Because I think last month that was the impression I had, is that there would be such a de minimis gain that even if he went through the effort of taking off something or doing a triangle, that we wouldn't get to where we need to be. But that might have also been because we were dealing with the 12-foot on the other side.
My stance is that if he had a surveyor that can, that will support the fact that that turnaround, that hammerhead, is not going to be enough, I mean, would that benefit you all?
Deny the variance.
No, that wouldn't, I want to know what lot coverage results from taking as much off the existing driveway as possible with the, I'd want to know what that, what numbers we're dealing with in terms of lot coverage. And to get to a circular drive. An L is a different thing. That's...
I mean, I'm willing to take Mr. Tom's statement and what we have in the record tonight, that he tried to do that in terms of using the green space and that it didn't result in the safety issue. And making that kind of a turn, I mean, even coming in tonight to park downstairs in the garage, trying to make that kind of turn next to the stairway requires a 3-point turn and is not any safer than what he has, almost than what he has now in terms of safety. So I don't think the L necessarily does result in that. So I'm supportive of the circular drive, but I'm like with Mr. Smith, that I need the existing driveway to come down a little bit, because it looks to me like that driveway is wider than you need it to be in order to accomplish people getting in and out. And if we're going to give you a circular drive, I'd want that driveway to be narrower. And if it could be off both sides, great. If it only takes a triangle off one side, that's great, just to get some of that cement off of the front of the house.
I'm willing to do that, but how much you want me to take off? I hate to come back here and then you reject it after all that expense.
I think it's not within our ability to redesign it. I think it's to make suggestions, but I think not to make things more complicated. But looking at this plat, it looks like the existing driveway apron. I mean, it looks like the curb cut may be why there's that extra triangle of concrete, in which case I don't know that you could really remove a sliver of it and without creating another issue. Whether or not, in other words, the driveway has to conform to the curb cut. And if the curb cut appears to be offset a little bit to the north from the driveway, which is where you would want to try to hack off a triangle, but I don't see that as necessarily, I mean, maybe that can still be done safely.
Yeah, and I guess I didn't look at that. I see now what you guys are talking about on the triangle, because Mr. Tom, looking at the lot thing, you can now see the triangle that people are talking about. I was actually just talking about taking 1 full foot off the driveway, regardless of the existing triangle, which would still take you into the curb cut, but would save on the whole driveway a foot down the 22 feet, rather than just that corner or triangle.
Yeah, as much as, yeah, I'm with you.
Because if you look at the front end of that picture again, my view is that you could go into that driveway and take it to the, so if you want to go to the front picture.
Go back to
that one. See where the red brick is? I don't see any reason why you couldn't just take your driveway, from that point, take that driveway out to open the green space, and then even if you have to curve it to get the curb cut, you're still taking out a substantial amount of concrete on that left side that is not being used to drive in and out of. That's just to be aesthetically pleasing, if you will, on that driveway.
Well, it also is possible you could take some of it off on the right.
Right.
Next to the building.
Right.
I mean, if you're going to try to, really gerrymander it.
But I think next to the building, I asked last month, and because that's tied to where the steps are, that doesn't get him anything if he does take off there. Because I asked him if they could take off some of the steps and that would count, because to me that looks like coverage. That doesn't count. That's already not part of the coverage.
Yeah, I was willing to take that out too. But the problem with taking it off the right side is that then you have to cover it with concrete from the driveway entering if you approve it at all. So it really isn't.
What do you mean we'd have to cover it with?
Imagine if you took, let's say, a foot or two off the right side of the driveway, towards the middle of the house. When that driveway comes in, then you got to fill that back up with concrete just to hook up to the narrower driveway.
Right.
Yeah, you wouldn't take it all the way back, no. I'm just saying you could take off a little bit of that in a strip there, in conformance with what you would need to do to meet up with the curb cut. But just even if you took off a little bit there, to me, that and then on the other side, you see how it curves out a little bit too? At least it looks like it from the front on. And so when you're doing the proposed, you're going to do it shorter, so you may not have to, you may be able to take out a little, foot over on that side too as you're joining your circular drive, just because you won't need it as wide as what it was going to be for 12 foot or as wide as it is right now. So if those two things were there, what I'm actually going to see is even more green space and grass than what you're currently proposing. But it would be clear to me then that there's still open green space in that property, notwithstanding the fact that it's a big house.
Yeah. So can you give me a number or some assurance that if I do this?
That's a good point.
Madam Chairman?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I really wonder if you would prefer us to give you a denial if you can't have exactly what we will approve. Because, my suggestion would be to figure out how to make all the concrete that constitutes a driveway as minimum as you possibly can, because we are being requested to approve a variance. The standard for a variance is dramatically different for the standard for a use permit that the other cases were tonight. And this board, based on what the state statute said, could have rejected this out of hand right from the very beginning without working with you at all, because we take it on that we have to justify why you get a variance for this, which is several things. One, the county board just approved this coverage stuff within the last 10 years stuff. That's a professional term. And this house is brand new. This could have been caught at the time that it was. That it really is very hard for some board members or board members to conclude that any variance can be granted at all for this situation. And then there are implications for every house in this situation up and down this street and every other one where the county over the years has widened them right to the point where there is no parking and there's 45, 50, and probably 60 mile per hour traffic zooming by, 2 lanes wide. So, it's a difficult case. And that's part of what's been going on here. It's so difficult. Thank you.
Yeah, and Ms. Dressel, I appreciate that. And I guess, Mr. Tom, I would just say, for me, though, Ms. Dressel, just the existence of the other curb cut and the existence in the neighborhood as I look at the street of something that would be similar to what's being proposed, I think there would be a basis upon which I could reach the standards on a variance if the percentage of the lot coverage was within 2 to 3% of the overage. Given...
I thought there was already.
No, I think it's 5. Isn't it?
4.1, 41.7 minus 38 is 3.7, right?
I think it was 3.7.
0.7, and that's brought down from how much? Maybe I'm looking at the wrong numbers.
Changed it.
3.9.
When you went down to the 8, it becomes 41.7.
Oh, 41. Okay, so I thought I was reading that wrong.
So he's going to, Madam Chair, he's pretty close. If he narrowed that driveway some, he's going to get really close to something that
he could do by right.
He could practically do by right, but something that would be a lot.
Do anything by right.
No, because we can't get it down narrow enough.
Already at the max.
Maxed out.
Well, but if you take stuff off.
No, if he took some off to get to the 38, he's at 41 and
41.7 now.
But he can't. But he's proposing to add at least a hammerhead and a circular. Right. How can you possibly add that? Take enough off of this to get to that.
But so
it's not. It's either this or.
But you're saying but his current proposal is only 3%. 3.5. It's 4%.
Almost 4%. But he's. and that's why it's lot coverage always comes down to being so narrow. You really don't look at people who are 10% over. It's when they're close that they've. And I think Mr. Russell's absolutely right. And it's part of my sentiment that, you had a clean slate to start with, and you built to almost the edge of the envelope.
I guess the only point that I would raise that Mr. Tom has raised that makes me struggle with this case, aside from, because I think Mr. Russell is absolutely right. On the face of the case, this should be a very easy denial. Having had 2 nights of testimony, however, I'm really pulled by the reality of our obligation to protect the health and safety of the citizenry and the fact that the existing driveway doesn't do that. And that Mr. Tom, when he built the house, put in the driveway with the thought that by making it wider, ironically, that it would protect it and make it easier for the people to come in and out. So when he built it thinking it was actually going to achieve that safety that it's not achieving. And so then he has to go back to the circular driveway, which was more safe. But, I take him at his word that the reason he did it this way is he thought that would be safer because there were other houses that were like that in the neighborhood, and he thought that would work. And it's only when his tenant said it's absolutely not safe and we've had an accident and we're concerned about this, that pulls at me in this case because of that larger safety issue.
Madam Chair, a question of staff. The curb cut, originally there were 2 curb cuts. Why didn't he take out, or could he have taken out the curb cut that we don't see? Could he have taken that out by right, or would he have had to gone to the county to get permission to take that curb cut out?
The curb cut's not on this property. It's actually in the right-of-way, so he would have had to get a permit from Environmental Services.
So he was stuck with that.
Correct.
And I'm kind of, I want to work with you. I don't want to just shut you down, because you had 2 curb cuts there to start. I'm really concerned about building to the edge of the envelope. So when you ask how much should I take off, I'm with Mr. Russell. Initially, it would have been an easy no, but I want to work with you. I'd say take off as absolutely much as you can and see what the number is. I guess, and you're not under a time constraint. It's not like you're trying to build something for the summer. No one is under a time, so it's the kind of thing that if you have to come back 2 or 3 more times, we've had cases. I think Ms. Espinoza remembers one. We continued for 2 or 3 years down on Lee Highway. Remember those cases? If you can, I think it's easy to get a denial.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't support it right now.
I understand that, Mr. Smith. Really, I do.
But having 2 curb cuts on the street helps me get over just a blanket no.
There are other factors in here that I know you're not concerned about costs, but there are other factors where if we keep doing this, I won't be able to do this.
Mm-hmm. Demolition is cheaper than building.
That was $950 to draw that driveway there on the existing plat. Now, you asked me to put in a hammerhead, shave off one
No,
side,
we're not.
shave off
I
another
don't think we're
side?
saying hammerhead because you've already. I think you got to listen to us. We agreed that your hammerhead. You've given us testimony that that's not safe. We're saying the circular driveway gives us the basis to do this, but what we need is a reduced amount of concrete on
Yes.
that. So that's a survey.
Well, then happy to do that. I just need some kind of number because if I do this,
Well, I think what you need to do is, in terms of that, Mr. Tom, is go to the surveyor and ask him what is the narrowest driveway he can put in for lot coverage doing your circle driveway. So if I took it to ask him, in terms of,
Espinoza, I already asked that right from the beginning, and this is what he gave me, that 12-foot driveway. I didn't ask for the 12-foot. 12 was what he recommended. Okay? He will draw whatever you tell him to draw, and that's the problem I've been having. As many times as I come back, as many times I went to the county trying to get answers on numbers, on specs.
well, I think what you have to say is what I'm trying to obtain is lot coverage as close to 2%, 1%. I mean, so give him the lowest number and say, can it be drawn, right?
1% would be a walkway. I'm already maxing it. So anything we do is going to exceed. It's just a matter of how much you're willing to grant on the variance.
I'm looking for an architectural drawing. I don't see anything in your packet from an architect. Is there something in here? Did I miss
Have this one?
Just the original application, the plat that he originally proposed, the 12-foot plat.
Something from an architect. That's a plat. That's not an architectural drawing. That's from a surveyor. I'm looking for something from a builder, an architect, something like that, because they would say, they really need to talk to Mr. Noxon, because you don't really want a middleman. You don't want to be the middleman between the county and the builder. Mr. Noxon could tell the builder, this is what they're asking for. Can you draw that? Because I'm not convinced that you're telling the builder or your architect or whomever what needs to be said to come up with something that responds to my concern. Because when you keep saying, well, what number? It's like we're talking past each other.
Mr. Noxon, did you have any?
I was going to say what we normally accept is a survey plat from a surveyor. Architects could possibly do the same thing and give you coverage figures. You hire another architect, that's more money, more time, so you might as well go with the same surveyor he's been using, who's already drawn this for him.
Mm-hmm. But he's not communicated with you, though.
The surveyor's not.
Right. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's the kind of conversation that, you might need to have Mr. Noxon talk directly to the surveyor to explain what the Board of Zoning Appeals is saying.
I mean, I guess for me, when I look at this drawing, the current drawing, Mr. Tom, I see that you've done an excellent job going from 12 foot to 8 foot on the circular drive. But I don't see any reduction in the existing driveway. And if you could make a reduction in the circular part, it seems like you could make a reduction in the driveway part.
I could, and I will. All I'm saying is how much of a reduction, because I have to tell the surveyor, or Mr. Noxon has to tell the surveyor. If that's the case, what's the difference between telling me or telling the surveyor directly? What I'm trying to avoid is to keep coming back.
Yeah, and I can appreciate the cost that you're incurring every time you go to them, but that's why I'm saying make if it's 14 feet at the widest place now, make it 8 foot, if you can, all the way on that drive, whatever. Because I don't know what a car's going to fit down the driveway. So I can't pick a number because I'm not a surveyor in terms of what a lot, what a pad to go into that garage would be. I don't know the width of that garage door. Is that a single garage? Is it a double garage?
Single garage.
Okay. So how wide is that garage door opening?
I don't know. I'm sure it's in the plans.
Probably 8 feet?
No, I think it's wider than that.
10 feet?
Can you measure that, Mr. Noxon?
You don't know. We don't know.
Oh, I know. I'm not.
About 8.5 feet, so that's typical.
8.5.
Okay.
Typical parking spot.
Yeah, that's what I would think, 8.5, 10. So I'm thinking, so for me, if you made the driveway 10 feet so that you get a foot on either side of that as opposed to the places where it's 14 feet, that's a demonstrable effort from my part.
Okay.
You're reducing the lot coverage. For me, I guess what I would need is some evidence that you're going to take down some of the existing concrete in addition to taking your proposed driveway. What you did is you got it halfway there for me by going from 12 feet to 8 feet on the circle part. But I think we had all asked, take something off of the existing driveway. And that's what we need to see from you. And we understand that you're still going to be over lot coverage, or because if you could have done it by doing that, you wouldn't have to come back to us.
Yep, that's what we're talking about. Which,
what?
Saying 8, just like you described.
Yeah, 8 and 8. I mean, if you could do it 8 and 8, that would. I think if you can do that and your surveyor says that can be done.
Yeah, if you tell me by 8. Then are you sure, Mr. Russell, you will agree to that?
Oh, we can't, I think,
Sir,
Mr. Tom.
I don't have to agree to anything. We each get the opportunity to vote when the case comes before us with what we have.
And I think,
and
what, yeah, Mr. Russell,
Ms. Espinoza is doing a very good job of trying to help you out with what
I appreciate it,
other
too.
board
I
members
understand.
might.
right, and Mr. Tom, one thing that would be helpful next time, and I know you spent money on the surveyor, but would be helpful for us, I think, is if he did draw it 8 by 8, if he came in with you to the next hearing, so that we could have the conversation with the surveyor with regard to this issue. Because if he says, I did a 8 by 8, that's a reasonable approach, that gives me evidence on the record, aside from your testimony, that we as a board can consider. And so that would be an additional piece of advice that we could give you. As you saw, a lot of people last month and this month would bring their representatives to come and talk with them.
Okay. Honestly, I would just blow my budget. I can't even do it, even if you approve the plans by that time.
I ask the applicant if he would agree to a deferral?
You can ask.
No, I'll take the rejection. I understand what you're trying to do. I hope you understand what I'm trying to do.
No, I think.
I've spent so much getting people to redraw and retestify and this and that. The budget's gone.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Just the paperwork on this was like close to $1,400. So you start drawing that stuff, you ask the engineer to come in, he charges by the hour. I don't have the budget anymore. So right now I'm legal. Give me a rejection, and I've done my due diligence. And I understand where you're coming from. I know you have to enforce a regulation. I accept it.
Okay. Well, I think in light of that, are there any other questions from the board of staff or Mr. Tom?
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Russell.
In order for you to keep all your options open, I think one of the things that we might be able to do is defer the case for a month, and you could decide to withdraw it. Because
no, I would rather have
that saves your money.
Yeah, and it's pretty much the same thing. We defer it for a month, and you just withdraw it, and that's the end of it for you and your expense, and the end of it for us. And what you don't do is, because if we deny it, you can't bring it back before us again if you went away and thought about it and whatever. Somebody said, oh, I can figure out a way for you to do this and just get a really small variance. Then, because the statute requires that if we deny a variance, you can't ask for it again for a year. It's a technical thing. So, I mean, we can do that rather than deny, if you would prefer.
And that gives you the same thing. It's over for you.
Yeah. No, thank you, but I'll take the denial. I don't want to come back anymore. But thank you. I appreciate you trying to accommodate me, but I can't do it.
But Mr. Tom, did you just hear what Mr. Russell said? You would not have to come back.
I heard. I won't even attempt.
I see your point. You want a flat denial so that you can say you've done your due diligence and it was denied.
Yes.
Instead
I
of
can't
just
look my
withdrawing
renters
it.
in the face and say I didn't try my best.
That's a good point.
That you just withdrew it.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry I took up your time.
Oh, Mr. Tom, wait, we're not done yet. So wait until I don't have a motion even yet where we're going, so we haven't completed your case quite yet. I am ready to entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd move we adopt the attached resolution denying the variance, V-10753-13-VA-1.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Freshman. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? I'm voting no.
I'm abstaining.
And one abstention. So it's 3-1-1, Mr. Tom?
Well, thank you. I do appreciate it.
And thank you for all your efforts. We do appreciate what you were trying to do. Okay, I'm ready for an additional motion.
Madam Chair, I move we pull off the table V-10766-13-UP-1, Mr. Wackness case.
Are there any speakers for this case? Are there any speakers?
Slips? No.
No. If you're going to testify in this case, can I have the speaker slip be brought up here?
We have a motion to take it off a second motion.
Yes, Mr. Smith made the motion
To
and...
pull it off the table?
Oh, was it me?
I thought it was Ms. Craven.
Yeah, fine. Second. Can't remember.
And for the record, I do have two speaker slips in this matter, both speaking against the request. So if we can have the applicant come forward and answer any additional questions or speak to the statements that were provided to him when we pulled the matter off the docket out of order. We provided him with 3 letters that were given to the county with regard to this, all opposing his requests. And do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I look the letters, the recommendation, which I have seen, but it's not anymore. We don't have a lot of traffic, people living. Then again, also what I'm building is just on my property. I'm not on building on somebody's property. And besides, it is on the back of rear on the house. And there was also a crack wall, and the county came, told me to repair. I comply with it, and I repair it. Therefore, I am just requesting, my family comes, we need this, to build. That's what I am suggesting, yeah.
Any questions from the board?
Madam Chair, are there currently in the basement 3 or 4 bedrooms?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There are, yeah.
And then currently on the first floor, there are an additional 3 bedrooms right now?
Yes, sir. Actually, 4.
We have about 7 bedrooms.
Upstairs 4 bedrooms, downstairs 4 bedrooms.
Okay, 4. So you have 8 bedrooms.
1 is an office in the basement.
8 bedrooms. 7 bedrooms. 2 full baths.
Yeah, correct.
1 kitchen.
1 kitchen, yeah.
In the basement, it says mechanical, existing mechanical. Would that just have a washer, a dryer, and a tub? Nothing else?
Nothing else.
There's no kitchen, there's no, okay. That's let's see, you don't have a garage, you just have a carport. And this proposed addition is to be what? Just a family room? Right? Just an open room, that's what you propose for that new, the addition?
Yes, sir.
And it's just 1 story?
Yeah, 1 story. Actually, it is less than the existing building. It's not
Nothing in the basement?
Nothing, sir.
Nothing below, it's on a concrete slab, you've already started it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Now, I think, Madam Chair, if I might just conclude, you, at the opening, before we deferred the case, you said, I think you said that you needed the space for your family, that only family. Could you describe what family lived with you, their relationship?
Well, I have my sister, and her children are coming. And sometimes, for rare, when you study, when you have, computer work to do, so they can use it.
Your sister, and she has how many kids?
She has 3 kids.
And you have?
I have 2 kids, mine.
So you and your wife and your 2 kids, your sister and her 3.
This property is, I used to rent it. I don't live, but...
You don't live there.
Yeah,
so your sister lives here?
She's going to live there, yeah, now.
So who's living in the house right now?
Yeah.
Right now I have 3 tenants.
3 renters.
Yeah.
They're not related. They're not relatives.
They are not relatives. One is actually since October. He's not paying me, so he's going to leave soon. Yeah. He didn't pay rent.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, thank you. Do you have anything else you want to say to us?
Well, I appreciate to give me this opportunity to come to express to you guys.
Okay, we're going to hear some testimony from the other neighbors, and then if you, after they speak, if you want to say anything, we'll give you one more chance to say something. Okay, so I would call Louisa Brinson.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Brinson. Thank you for staying till the end of the docket.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you want to share with us today?
The concerns is that with my neighbor, wonderful guy, he's indicating that his family, I assume, would move in next. But my concerns is prior to adding quite a few people, there. Of course, he understands I complain quite often, parking on the lawn, and also cigarette butts, music. But he's indicating my family will move there now. Do I trust? Because of what I've seen in the past, along with the other neighbors. That's our concern, is just too many people coming and going. And with me living by myself, and I never see the same face on a daily basis. It's different people. So right now, that's one of the reasons why I have to say I don't agree with him adding, because it would be more renters. Some more than 15, 20 at a time. So I can't agree with what he's doing right now.
Can I ask how long you've lived in the neighborhood, ma'am?
I have another property too, but I'm there now since 2008, October. I left, bought a condo, and then I came back. So
one of the reasons I ask is the packet that we have indicates there were a lot of variances granted to allow constructions in the backyard encroaching on the buildable lot. So part of what we look at is this similar to other properties in the neighborhood? Can you talk to that at all? Other places that have, and even the applicant has indicated that other houses have build-outs off the back of their house like this. Can you?
The others, Mr. Rogers, he's one of the ones that is opposing the construction that's going on now. That's not the issue. The issue is who's going to be there in the home. That's our concern.
And I understand that, but the problem is that we're looking at it not necessarily for who's going to be living in the house, but the consistency of granting the extension of the house in conformance with the rest of the neighborhood. So I'm trying to get a sense of what the rest of the neighborhood is like in terms of these kinds of build-outs.
Quite a few people have added on to their homes, and but the issue is the coming and going, safety. We're back to safety, so that's the concern.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Madam Chair, briefly, you indicated that that Roger Ray, he's a neighbor. Do you know what his address is?
No, but he's the one. It's there in the picture, the bigger house that's 2 doors from.
An aerial view.
Mr. Ray has he has a house. The smaller house is Mr. Ray's next to Mr. Workna, and then this next one is Mr. Ray's.
See where the cursor is? Is it the one to the right of that?
Those 2 homes are Mr. Ray's.
Okay, gotcha. The tall one and the short one. Then.
Yes, sir.
And you're the house next to or on the other side?
Okay. Madam Chair, might I ask, the retaining wall on the back, have you had any issues with that?
Yeah, we all had, and we're.
Well, you look pretty close to the back property line also. That's Mr. Worknet. You're to the right.
Yes, but that's the existing house, been there forever. But
Are those Mr. Ray's houses?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we also have Mr. Earl Barbie, who resides at 1551 South 12th Street in Arlington, Virginia.
That's correct. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Or evening.
I think maybe I need to get something clear. Those houses that's sitting close to that wall, those were built on the old footprint of the old houses. And there was no add-on to those houses.
So do you know of anything where there were variances? Because in our packet, there's a lot of houses that had to come to the Board of Zoning Appeals and get variances.
Get a variance. Mine had to get a variance.
And how long have you lived in the neighborhood, Mr. Barbie?
1953.
Okay, so your historical knowledge is very helpful. When did you get your variance?
Got variance for my house in 1972.
Okay, I just want to check. You're at...
I'm at 1551.
It's not on this list.
It's not on the list.
Yet one more.
But yeah, we have them from 69, 71, 81. So, and then there are some that were built in the 1930s, as you indicate.
Right, and those houses there, those were the old houses where they were torn down, so there was no add-on. One of the things I'm concerned about is about the addition is that at my civic association, that house has come up quite a few times for discussion. One of the issues has been the number of people who were in there and the condition in the house. Also, there was an individual in there that the neighborhood had, civic association had asked the police to attend the meeting. And this individual was under police surveillance for a while. So far, I don't see him, see him around anymore. But my concern is that Mr. I can't think of his name.
Wozniak?
Yeah.
Wagner?
He says it's for family, and if you got, that's a small house. It's only 38 by 28 and 8 bedrooms, and then he's going to add some more on the end. This is a rooming house, plain and simple. And I'm getting tired of looking out my window and seeing cabs, cars parked in the yard, cigarette butts, and trash. So that's why I'm opposed to any addition for this particular house.
Well, we appreciate it. Any questions from Mr. Barbie? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any final comments, Mr. Wozniak?
The final comment I give is, he said the individual he was saying, originally he was from Ethiopia, he was sick, and he is home now. As he said, he doesn't see him anymore. But the other cigarettes, all everything, there won't be. As I said, my family is going to live over there. So he is also, actually, he's not my immediate neighbor. He is the third house from me. So she's my immediate neighbor. She is a very wonderful person, and what she says, I consider it, and I listen to her as a neighbor.
I just have one question. You are not living in the house, is that correct?
Yeah, I didn't live there.
Where do you live?
I live about 4 blocks.
4 blocks away?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I think you can have a seat, and we...
I'm sorry. Is anybody living in the house right now?
Yeah, there is 3 people living there, yeah.
How many?
3 people, yeah. They live over there.
3?
Yeah, one is going to move soon, yeah.
Do they have any family members?
No.
3 single people?
Yeah, 3 single.
And you said they are related or they are not related?
They are not related, but one, as I say, since October...
hasn't paid you, and so he'll be being evicted.
So I have appointment, yeah. And the whole house is just empty since long time.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions?
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Russell.
if I'm going by the county map that shows the other houses on the street, according to this, 1551, 1545, and 1539 are all, and that's the subject house, are all lined up together. 1558 seems to be the same distance in 1603. Some of the others further down the street are much closer to 11th Street, and as was pointed out, one of them was rebuilt on its own foundation. One of the things I might, because I'm afraid I'll forget to tell him after the meeting, you might have the staff check out why there are even and odd numbers on the wrong side. There's a whole mix of even and odd numbers through
the
here.
28 and the 26.
Yeah, so, which
They
may
might have
be an
faced the
error
other
on the
street.
system.
Actually, some of, I question that as well. It's because some of them actually are addressed to 11th and some of them are to 12th.
Right,
So
that's the way you would do that.
So those are
mixed up.
good old Arlington, I tell you
That's
what.
South Arlington.
Even
Why don't
the ones
people
that face the
appreciate
back
how
of
wonderful
12,
that
some
is?
of them front on that.
Character. That's character. Anyway, so I'd happen to notice that, but, so I guess my point is that the existing house is in line with several other existing houses, which I wouldn't be surprised may all have been built about the same time and be of a similar design, since I noticed the next door house is of a similar design to this one. Now, we do have the benefit of the floor plans, and it's interesting, there are a lot of bedrooms. There's also living room already, so, what's the purpose of another family room to be added to it? When, if you wanted the family room, you might take out a bedroom or two and have a family room, unless you absolutely need 6 or 7 bedrooms. According to him, it was 7. So, just some points.
Yeah, Madam Chair, that was kind of where I was going with it. And looking at, there are other, as Mr. Noxon has noted, there are other houses that encroach in the rear. But a family room, on the plan showing them as family rooms, basement and first level. No, I'm sorry, just first level, showing it as a family room. Well, I can imagine with 7 or 8 bedrooms, you need another gathering space other than the existing living room and dining. I can't, and I don't know right off the top of my head what the ordinance is with respect to, boarding houses or rooming houses. I know that there was a change, but that's not our purview.
That's not in our purview.
That's not our purview, so it's not really a factor. It really is compatibility with the neighborhood, and one of the things that I gathered from what Mr. Russell said is that the house is compatible as it is with the neighborhood, but would making an addition on the back that's take another almost 13 feet into the rear yard, take it out of compatibility. Yeah, I don't know, because you have other houses in the neighborhood that Mr. Noxon points out that have been granted either use permits or variances that put them close, even one closer at 8 feet. So, just looking for that list. I am, it's hard to not divorce yourself from the rooming house, siren that you hear going off in your head that kind of makes you want to oppose it. But on the other hand, that's not our purview. That's not our scope. That's the subject of the other complaint that will, I imagine, get action. Will be much more invasive than our kind of our review. So I'm not. I don't have a deep objection to a one-story addition on the back. that's not as close as some of the neighbors. I'm trying to find that list where it is. Yeah, where you have, you know, he's seeking to be how close? 12 feet from the back? Yeah, 12.4 feet. And you have, you know, 11.15, 11.75, through, you know, 8 feet from the rear lot line on 1520. So I'm not, and it is odd, I'm not terribly opposed to the distance from the rear lot line. Is it I don't, and it's not a health and safety issue. It's, you know, certainly the retaining wall is that we'll have to deal with both planning and zoning and Department of Environmental Services, I presume, or not environmental services, but environmental services. So, but so I'm not. I mean, I could find an approval in it, even though I know it's not the most popular thing, because we're not dealing with, you know, the rooming house issue.
Well, Mr.
Madam Chair,
I think you've spoken clearly on that, or relatively clearly on that.
And over several times.
Is there anyone else that has any statements or thoughts? Ms. Freshman.
Well, I am troubled by the neighbors' concerns about the number of occupants. I trust that someone in the county is paying attention to that, to how many people are living there in all those bedrooms, whether or not they're related to one another, because we do have rules about that and all the adjacent issues like parking and coming and going. But I'm actually more uncomfortable with the notion that the addition has already in process. Mm-hmm. And there's just a presumption that we can do it, and then when somebody raises a red flag, oops, we have to do something. So I'm not persuaded that a house that has these many rooms and these many, and already has sufficient living space and kitchens and whatnot, bathrooms, needs to be any larger, and I don't feel comfortable codifying the behavior.
Thank you. Ms. Craven, do you have anything? Or Mr. Russell?
I think I share Ms. Freshman's sentiments. I mean, I tried to point out that the other houses of a similar design don't have these additions on the back of them. They're more modern. They were possibly, it'd be interesting to know what year the house was built, and maybe it's in here somewhere. Hadn't looked at it before. But it may very well have been built conforming under the ordinance or close to it when it was.
1964 was when it was constructed.
So it's under the 1950 ordinance. And I think you said that the 11th Street wasn't a street, or there was something about setbacks as they would have been determined at the time. So perhaps, you know, some of these others that in the pictures, granted, there have been variances, the most recent not being very recent either in the list. Different board with different idea of what a variance is and what a use permit is, and didn't have use permits at all. They would have only had variances. A lot of them were much older than that. So I'm not persuaded that we've received information and testimony, and at least in letters, about the situation with the wall. The hardship on the land seems to work in the opposite direction in that case. Other than that, it's fairly, it's conforming. So I'm really not persuaded that.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. I guess going back again to the elements that we discussed at the beginning of the evening, I kind of actually weigh down the other side in terms of the testimony of the neighbors. And although I indicate, and I think there has been testimony or statements from the board, that we would generally not consider the testimony of what's happening in the existing house as relevant to the granting of the use permit because it's going to the land. I think the first element of the use permit is that it will not adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing in the neighborhood. To the extent that we have a history with this owner who does not live in the property of renting out to more people than are reasonably allowed, I cannot see that granting this use permit to expand the size and footprint of this home would do anything but adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing in the neighborhood. So for that reason alone, I will not be supporting the use permit.
Would you like a motion?
I accept a motion.
Okay. I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached resolution denying use permit V10766-13-UP-1 for the rear one-story addition, but approving the 3 side egress window wells.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Abstentions? Okay, so that's 4-1-0. I think that completes our meeting for cases, and now we'll move into an organizational meeting for the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Madam Chair, last month was our chair's last meeting, Conchita Mitchell. We have a vacancy. Therefore, I would nominate you, Madam Chair, as the new chair for the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Second. Too late.
I was going to say, wait a minute. There's been a motion, and it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And, Madam Chair, Ms. Craven, I think, is the next in line in seniority. I would nominate her vice chair.
I would second.
Can I abstain? No, I'm just teasing.
I almost did. All in favor?
Aye.
And I think lastly, Madam Chair, our last piece of business is we have to re-elect a secretary for the board, and I think Mr. Noxon has done a wonderful job, and therefore I nominate Andrew Noxon, secretary to the Board of Zoning, Deputy Zoning Administrator Andrew Noxon as the secretary to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, I think that concludes our business. Are there any other items? I guess while we're on the record, I did allude to something. We're not actually at a stage where we have to do anything about it, but Mr. Noxon did share with us that one of the cases there's been a request for a record to be prepared, and so they're moving towards an appeal. They're not there yet. Mr. Noxon, will you provide that information to the rest of the board?
Yes, it's the Colt appeal. It was the case on North Piedmont Street, I think 3401 North Piedmont Street. That was the appeal of a phone conversation with one of our deputies about steps encroaching into the side yard setback. They have taken that to the circuit court. So we don't have a hearing date set yet, but we've gotten the writs and the orders to turn over everything, including an actual written transcript, to the circuit court.
So Mr. Noxon will continue to keep us apprised of anything else that happens. Any other business to come before the board? Oh, well, we have to approve our minutes. Yes. Are there any amendments? Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes, and are there any amendments to the minutes which were prepared for us?
I move approval of the minutes as written for the February 12th meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I believe that's 4 votes. Is there an abstention? Mr. Freshman will abstain. And so I think that takes care of everything. Drew, do you have the copy I have to sign? Or do I sign this copy?
Just sign that copy.
Okay.
Exactly.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.